Alrighty, in this video we're going to be talking about the 5 most underrated cards of the CBT. There were plenty of cards that people understood and established were OP, they're crazy, they provide everything you could possibly want. There were other cards that people just generally ignored, or characters that were a little too complicated, or they didn't seem to have all their kits put together just quite yet, and maybe either weren't in the discussions at all for decent. So I'm going to be talking about some cards that were misunderstood, or we just didn't understand the ways they could be used. And after researching and discussing a little bit more, here are my top 5 most underrated cards from the CBT. So coming in at number 5, we have Tressa's ultimate, Cursed Gouge. And I think Cursed Gouge had a little bit of a bad rap in the CBT because a lot of players, myself included, did not understand what poison is. Poison, we thought it was just another word for agony, which is her bleed. Her primary mechanic is stacking bleeds on enemies. Every turn they take extra damage, etc., like a normal bleed. We thought, oh, poison is just a little bit more bleed, but it's not. The poison debuff makes it so that the enemy's next instance of bleed that you apply to them gets doubled, and so you want to combine it with whichever ability or card gives the most agony to the enemy. It'll work for 2 times, and the one that stands out is definitely her Wave of Darkness. Normally it applies 2 stacks of a 4-turn bleed, as you can see here on her ego skill, but after you get her 4th dupe, that'll up to 6, so it'll be a 6x2. And I don't know 100% if this works, but she has a curse upgrade that applies 2 additional agony, and if that counts as an 8x2, then these 2 stacks of poison will turn that 8x2 into a 16x2, which will be 32 stacks of bleed total. If after 16 turns, now 16 turns is a long time, but 32 stacks of bleed is a 1600% ratio because each stack of bleed deals 50% fixed damage at the beginning of the next turn, and after 16 turns you will have dealt 1600% fixed damage with 2 abilities, an ego skill and her poison, which is an incredible amount of single target damage. It will be what you use to take down bosses. If Tressa is in your team, you need to make sure you understand how her poison works and that you're using it effectively. Coming in at number 4, we have Rin's ultimate, Black Mist. This is probably my favorite card from the CBT. This card barely got mentioned at all in terms of Rin's base, Rin's kit and what she's really trying to do. This card, with only costing 1 AP, has a 160% base damage, and it can be upgraded to 190% if you get an extra dupe on her. And the number of strikes is increased based on the number of skill cards in your hand for a total of 5 times, and I don't know if that's max 5 or actually max 6 if you have 5 skill cards. So Rin loves when you have other characters who have lots of skill cards in their hand, or cards that you pull. When you play this card, she wants to be paired with characters that have lots of skill cards. And the character that matches up with this really well is Orlea, surprisingly. Orlea has 5 skill cards in her regular kit of 8 total cards. But more than that, her creatures that she creates, 2 of those 3 are skill cards. So Orlea on her own can play 7 cards in her hand for Rin. It is very, very easy for Rin to satisfy this requirement to get those maximum number of swings off. And combined with Orlea, she's going to be smacking for a buttload of damage. And because it is a multi-hit, she's going to love, Nia's morale. She's going to love any kind of other card buffs because it's going to apply to every single hit within her kit. Now, Rin is getting a little bit of a rework. We know that her Dark Cloud stance, Dark Cloud blade art mechanic is going to be changed. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but I hope they don't touch her ultimate because that's what I find most exciting about this character. Next up for underrated cards, coming at number 3 is Dark Condensation. Dark Condensation gets a little bit of a bad rap because when you look at it at face value, it says 1 attack card increased by 100% damage until used. Now this card wasn't considered nearly as strong as, for example, Nia's buffs, because Nia has a 2 morale buff on one of her base cards, or on one of her upgrade cards, and a 3 morale buff on her ego skill, and both of those last for the rest of the turn, so all your cards go up 100% in damage. But Ray's here with one of the epiphanies can go up to 150%, and that can go really, really well with any one particular nuke. If you're playing a character that doesn't have a ton of multi-hits, but they have 1 or 2 big multi-hit cards, this one can pack a huge punch. And if you're already playing Ray for other reasons, this 150% is going to apply to every single swing, just for that attack, and it'll be an incredibly strong power combo. Units that would love this are Owen with his AoE Wind Slash, Rin's ultimate Black Mist that I just mentioned with her 10 billion swings. Kayron's Black Hole card has 2 upgrades that have multi-swings. One has 6 and I believe the other has 4, and then Luke also has a Dance of the Demon card that has a 6 hit if you can get it off. The main idea is that this is basically like a 1 card, 1 turn, 7.5 morale buff. It increases it by 150% instead of Nia's normal 100%. However, this can be buffed even further because, I don't know this 100%, but we've heard rumors that your team's morale stacks are capped at 5. You can't get any more. And so if that's the case, I didn't test if that was the case, but if that's the case, then Nia caps you out at 5 morale stacks. You can't get any more than that. If you got more from other characters or other cards, you already kind of max out the buff. But Ray has in her kit a temporary 1-turn morale 4, and she also, with her Resonating Darkness, has the ability to buff 1-cost cards, damaging them further. And so all these things combined will outdamage Nia's buff significantly in some certain niche cases, specifically with the cards I mentioned before. So I'm going to be trying to play Ray in a bunch of different comps with this specific type of setup where I'm trying to get a really good Dark Condensation play. Coming in at number 2, we have Kayron's Oath of Vanity card, specifically the skill type of Epiphany. Normally this is an upgrade that changes your void cards, which normally are just 1-cost cards that are hard to get rid of, into something useful. They normally give them attack, some heal, they still cost 1 or maybe they cost 0, but you still have to play them. Kayron's skill version of Oath of Vanity instead changes it to a card that you have to use because it's a skill, so it'll go back into your deck instead of an upgrade. But when you use it, it immediately banishes all status ailments and curse cards from your hand, including your voids and any ailments that the enemy might have given you. And for each that you banish, you draw 1 and gain 1 AP. And if you play this right after something like his Echo of the Unbound Ultimate that creates 5 void cards in his hand, cost 2 AP, you just play this card, you banish 5 cards from your hand, you immediately get 5 draw and 5 action points. This is a huge setup for his other damaging cards, Brand of Annihilation and Black Hole, both of which get way better based off of how many cards you've banished total this match, or how many cards you've banished this turn. You can see some of these ratios go incredibly high. Multi-hits, like I mentioned before, in Black Hole, that you can use with a unit like Ray, or Brand of Annihilation, that just cost less for these super expensive cards that deal high damage ratios. And this really unlocks Kayron. So again, he has multiple play styles. You can play with the style where you get enough AP to play the voids, or you make the voids cost 0. But I think the most exciting thing is the one in which you just banish them. And you can combo this with his Echo Futility and follow that up with a Rift of Nothingness ego skill usage, where you have now created 2 sets of void cards and banished both of them for an incredible amount of damage in 1 turn, without him requiring any other synergy or any other buffs or AP or bonuses or support from other units. And last but not least, for most underrated card of the CBT, in my personal opinion, one that I've seen discussed occasionally in the Discord, in the subreddits, in the Chinese forums, etc. I've never seen somebody say this is a really cool card. Now again, Ray has gotten a little bit of a bad rap because Nia just looks like so much better of an out-of-the-box buffer with her 5 morale. Ray seems a little more niche, but the first time I looked at Snack Time, I wasn't sure what it was doing. This is a card that you exhaust, so you can only use it 1 time. And when you use it, you get to pick 1 card from your hand to exhaust, or maybe 2, and then you get to draw maybe. The question is, why would you want to do this? This isn't a super valuable thing. Once you use it, you can't do it anymore. But once I thought about it a little bit more, I realized how strong it is. If you've ever played a deck building game before, you understand how important it is throughout your run as you're building your deck to get rid of those lower value cards. Those gray cards, those lower rarity cards, like right here, like her base cards, for 1 AP you can deal 100% damage. Remember the Rin that had a 190% ratio for a 5 hit for the 1 AP as well? You want to get rid of these base cards and cycle through more and more often to get those super cool ultimates like Rin's card. But most of the time, you'll have difficulty getting rid of those bad cards because there aren't a lot of opportunities. You can get rid of them sometimes with events, and you can get rid of them at the rest stops if you pay money at the different, like the truck that sells stuff to you. But aside from that, there aren't a lot of opportunities to get rid of cards. Ray helps you get rid of those bad cards in your hand 1 time for all the cards in your hand. You can get rid of 1 or 2, or in this case as many as you want, or in this case you can go to the draw pile and grab 3 cards from the draw pile and say, hey, these 3, I don't want to be cycling through these cards. And once, especially if you're having a fight that goes on for a long time, reducing your number of cards from 18 with a couple weak cards down to a leaner 15, or from 15 down to a leaner 12 will significantly increase your ability to have consistent throughput and output for the rest of the fight. And because Ray is a support, this can sync with a ton of different characters. This is not specific to any one particular carry. This is any carry can get rid of their random shields and heals, and Ray can get rid of her attacks. It just synergizes so well with the idea of keeping your hand small and lean. And so that's it. Those are my 5 most underrated cards from the CBT. I think they have a ton of potential. I am super excited to play with each of these, assuming none of them get tweaked too much between the CBT when we last saw the game and the game's release. And I hope I gave you some ideas of strategies and comps to employ as you consider what kinds of teams you're going to be building for when the game comes out. And as always, if you haven't already, make sure that you're pre-registered to play. And if you have underrated cards that you think nobody else was looking at in particular strategies, let me know about it. I'd love to hear it.